So far, the weather this summer, meteorologically speaking, mostly, has been unseasonably cool. I will say, June definitely started off on a warm note on the 1st and 2nd, but the high temperature fell to the 60s on June 3rd. And while it hasn't been that bad mostly since then, there has still been just this general cool theme to summer. That was nice in the school year, but I kind of hoped that weather would have continued to camp because a pattern change happened. And right now we're kind of a bit in a transition zone, I gotta say, because you know how I always say things, are gonna get worse. It's gonna get worse for week 2 of camp. Because I don't know how it's gonna work for all 8 weeks. Week 1, the weather was somewhat comfortable. We weren't doing laborious tasks. Week 2, it's going to get a lot more demanding on the body. Which you have to understand that camp is from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and I'm not always the best with times in this case. But the high temperature usually comes at about 2 to 3. But pretty much once you get to about 11 o'clock, it's about the hottest time of the day until camp ends. I'm inside for some of it, or like under a tent serving lunch. So it's not so bad, but it's gonna get worse. And this is all for like the suburb area of like the Plainview to Wheatley Heights area, think around Farmingdale, that kind of area. That's where we're really gonna be focusing on this video. So, as we know, June has averaged about a degree or 2 below average, and June 2023 is going to kind of go down as our first region-wide below average month since December 2022. But the first since January 22 that's not even close. Especially in Central Park. I mean, even in the suburbs, it's falling below average. And that's saying a lot. What you gotta understand is how consistently below average it's been, and how it's only been a few of these warmth spots. That's essentially a brief spot where it gets warm, but the pattern did change significantly at the end of June. June 23rd only had a high of 70, but it was humid. And I feel like I saw the high was 72. It was humid, and dew points were in the mid-60s. On June 24th, the humidity continued, and on the 25th, it continued too, except that the high temperatures then rose to about 77 or 78. And then from there, they rose to 83 or 84. So heat indexes were in the mid-80s. First day of camp cooled down to a high of 82, and then a high was 77, and then I think back to 82. With humidity, heat indexes were a few degrees above average. The dew points were actually pushing on the upper 60s. Today, the high was probably going to go down to 82, but the dew points fell into the mid-60s. And mid to low 60s dew points is actually going to continue into Friday, even as the high temperature does get to about 85 degrees, which for my suburb would have been the warmest day of the year, if not for that the anomalous heat event in April. But it'll be more humid. There will be a positive heat index as compared to, a negative heat index. It won't be that big of a heat index. July 1st can kind of continue that same way with temps, largely built on the low 80s, but only feeling a few degrees hotter. Sunday actually is a high in the upper 70s, but it's going to feel like 82 or 83. Dew points are going to be back to their tropical levels. Monday, July 3rd, I heard, is going to, not be the warmest days. It'll be under clouds with a high of 85, but the 72-degree dew point, it's going to feel like a jungle out there, and the heat index is going to be 90. I got the 4th of July, which appears to have a high of around 86 and a heat index of around 91. July 6th seems to be the real deal. Similar conditions on the 5th as compared to the 4th, but July 6th appears to have the potential to be a 91-degree day with a 96-degree heat index, thanks to a 68-degree dew point. that just honestly sounds miserable to me, and I'm going to hate it, especially with all the work I have to do. Not that it's totally outdoors, and I'll probably be able to get through it, but like I'll need to take precautions against that kind of heat. And July 7th is to be a brief cool down, but again, expect heat indexes to be above 90. This isn't gonna appear to be a heat wave, but it will be our first 90-degree day of the year on July 6th. For my suburb at least, New York City's already had 3, 2 in April, 1 in June, which again just screams as to how weird this whole thing has been. And as I said that it could be like the summer 2017, which is kind of like cool and rainy, I have my doubts. Miles are still on a forecast and above average June, but how above average, we don't know yet. You know, I personally just have a suspicion that that July won't be too much above average, but it'll still be a bit above average, and it'll be more consistent rather than extreme. But there will be, again, a lot of humidity to work with, and it's just going to make an oppressive environment. It's like a actually oppressive environment. You know, I just hope that, you know, it's not as bad as like what it could have been the last 2 summers. Summer 2021, week 1 would have started off miserable with heat indexes topping 100 as high temperatures soared to the low 90s with dew points now in the mid 70s. But eventually the heat wave broke and temps fell back to the 70s. Week 2 though started off on, again, that just really hot note, with temperatures soaring back into the low 90s with, again, that oppressive humidity returning. And even though there were a handful of cool days with highs only in the 70s, they still felt oppressive thanks to humidity, which is really hard to catch a break from. But there wasn't really any overbearing heat until the end of week 7 when yet another heat wave came in with 90-degree temperatures and, again, those near 100-degree heat indexes. What I will say is that there were, you know, 4 main heat waves, but one of them occurred in the beginning of June when school was still in session, and one of them occurred at the end of summer vacation at the end of August. Yeah, I know. Summer 2022, actually weeks 1, 2, 3 started off kind of moderate with low humidity and temperatures that only briefly were touching on the upper 80s. And then I remember week 4, it would have started off 81, but feels like 88, thanks to like 75-degree dew points. That's just a swamp. And then a heat wave that came in with dew points that were sometimes in the 70s, sometimes in the 60s, but like, again, temperatures in the mid-90s. Those heat indexes were pushing on triple digits for a bit there. Week 5 cooled down to the 80s. Week 6 started off with a day in the 70s before flaring back into either hitting the 90s or flirting with them. And week 7 started off miserable too, but week 8 would have been somewhat calm with the weather. So, hoping to the best for 2023 for this to not be too bad. You know, I still have 50 days until the last day of camp because it started 4 days ago. Still have 35 more days to work. So, let's just see how this goes.